everybody, it is Matt, the 3D printing noob, or 3D noob, as most of you people know. Today we are going to be doing the unboxing and initial review of the Geeetech A10M. This is a dual extrusion printer. For those who don't exactly know what dual extrusion is, basically it's a dual color filament. So we're going to set it up, and on top we're going to have 2 rolls of filament, different colors. I'll probably choose it from my rack up over here, whichever ones. Maybe a blue and a green. We'll do some mixtures of that. Now this printer is quite unique when it comes to different printers because it's not just a dual extrusion printer. It is also has the ability to do mixing as well. So that's really nice to have, because let's say I don't have a certain type of filament. Like I have some basic colors here, nothing too out of the ordinary. But you know, you can mix colors. I'm not too familiar with mixing colors. Apologies. I'm not too familiar with mixing colors and getting, you know, an X color. It's been a long time since I've done something like that, since like grade school. So I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head how to do that. So, but anyway, with this printer, you can mix colors into the hot end and it will create a new color for you. So what's really unique about that is when you're printing something, you don't just have to have 2 different colors. So you don't have to have like first layer is blue, second layer is green, third layer is blue, and so on and so forth. You know, you don't have to have stackable colors or chopped up colors, whatever you want. You could actually mix those 2 colors and create a new color. Now, you will have to set up purging the system. I'm not going to get into that tonight because I still have to learn all that stuff. This is my first time using a dual extrusion printer, so I'm not really sure exactly how to set that up in my slicer settings. But maybe I'll do another follow-up video of this because I will be actually keeping this printer and testing it out for quite some time. I don't plan on letting it go like the other printers that I've tested. Usually I have for my giveaways. This one will actually be my personal printer again. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm gonna go ahead and share this video really quick onto some of the places. So just bear with me for 1 second. Let me set up this system. Let's see what we have here. Okay. All right, let's go to the Book of Faces. And we'll share this to the Geeetech group and get this up and going. By the way, my apologies for my hair. It's been a long day, so kind of passed out a little bit earlier, and I woke up and got some food, and yeah, it's just been a hectic day, but no worries, we're getting this done finally. Getting it up out of the way. I just realized that I did the name wrong. I put in full color printer. So I'm sure somebody's gonna flag me on that one. Guarantee it. So, but just give me 2 more minutes and then we'll get this party started. And I don't think I brought any cutting tools, so we're gonna have to cut this. That's all right. No worries. We'll get this up and ready to go and show you guys how to set this up. I've watched numerous videos on how to set this up. Now the thing is, I will say that I've had 2 Geeetech A10s already, just the normal ones. The first one was basically an exact duplicate of an Ender 3. As you can see, my Ender 3 is gone from here. It is currently being overlooked because out of my now 6 printers, it is the only machine 3D printer that I have consistent issues with. And I think I've narrowed it down, so I'll have to take a look at that another day. But yeah, basically I just stated that I basically just woke up. So I didn't even do my hair or whatever. It's not the end of the world. I'm not going to be here to appease to you people. But all right, let's get this up and running. If you want to go ahead and share this, you could go ahead. Should get like a dedicated knife to open up this stuff. Okay, so as typical Geeetech fashion, we have our quick start guide. It gives us a basic rundown of how to set it up. Now this printer, I will say, has some really cool stuff. No, it does not have yellow tape, unfortunately. It's just clear tape. It's from Amazon, so they kind of clean it up a little bit. Typical foam. All right, let's move this up out of the way as I drop everything. All right, so in here, I believe these are the dual extruders. Yep, so these are heavy duty plastic extruders. I forget the name of it. I believe it's composite. These are basically like Titan extruders. Now, if anybody that knows about 3D printing, Titan extruders are probably one of the heaviest hitting extruders you can possibly find. I have one on my Tronxy over here, and even if I got a clog, it will literally push that clog right out of the nozzle. I mean, it's ridiculous. So that's nice that they made sure to include some really nice extruders, which is kind of strange because normally you don't see that with a stock printer. You don't see that they have Titan style extruders, which so that's definitely one nice little upgrade there. Okay, so looks like it's packed just the same as an A10. Did have this plate fall off. Not a really big issue. Actually, kind of is a big issue because it actually did fall off. So we'll have to either print a new one or contact Geeetech. Most likely is the first thing we're going to do. So right out of the box, I can see already that our plate is skewed, and this is like reality right here. This is awesome. So I don't know if this is damaged or not, or it's just not put on correctly. It's just not put on correctly. Okay, there we go. So it looks like we're missing a bolt on the bottom here. So already we have an issue with this, which I've heard a lot of people tend to have issues with these printers, these A10Ms. It's usually, you know, some smaller issues, nothing too major, but issues nonetheless. There we go. Slides in a little better. Let me grab my key set here. We can put a bolt in there and get that all ready. It's always good to have extra screws and nuts and really anything laying around just in case something like this happens. Because as of right now, we are missing a screw for the entire electronics assembly. So let's go ahead and put a new screw in there if we can. I believe this is going to probably be one step up. Let's check. Okay. Pretty simple. Not too big of an issue, but definitely never had that happen with another printer before. All right, fixed one issue, moving along. That aside, that back. Okay. Let's go ahead and snip all these lines. So this one has the same issue when I unbox my Ender 3, is it has a wobbly carriage. So very simple to fix. Basically there's 2 screws on each end. We're just going to loosen those up. We're not going to take them out, but we're just going to loosen them. And what we'll do is we'll set them on a front to back area. So that way it sets it up, and then we'll do the same, like we'll just press them down. So just bear with me here for a second. Okay, so now it was wobbly, now not so much. So now we're all good. Now we can probably tighten this back up. There is one thing that's making me a little off, and I don't know if it's the bed itself or what. But it looks like the actual X is twisted this way, not that the build plate is. Normally it's the build plate and you just adjust the centric nuts and call it a day. But this one, so the frame is built in an H pattern, or an I pattern actually, depending on the way you look at it. But we're just going to call it an H because that's what it looks like. So you have the 2 main bars, a center bar, and then you have another center bar that's directly in the center. That one is actually the X, I believe, if I am not mistaken. and that bar looks like it's skewed off to the right. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at that really quick. Let me button up the frame. So this is an unfortunate thing to do, because for those who want a printer that just like right out of the box, it's working. Now I could probably leave this and it would be fine, but for all intents and purposes, it's going to be a printer that I'm going to be using. So I want to have it actually working the way that it should. So we're going to go ahead and adjust this accordingly and see where we go. And now we're skewed again. Alright, so we'll have to look at that. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at our base plate. So now that I have this flipped over, you can clearly see that the X plate is going up and off on an angle. So I know it's kind of hard to see from that distance. Unfortunately, I don't have a up close camera as of right now. So maybe we'll get that later on down the road so I can show you guys exactly what this is. But we're going to go ahead and unloosen these center nuts or bolts and see if we can adjust this. Hopefully we can. If not, this review is all for naught. All right, so there we go. So now we want to adjust this accordingly. What's nice about this is you can use the electronics box to kind of line up the extrusion bar. That's what these bars are called, the bases of this. So for anybody that's doesn't understand what extrusion means, you know, there's extruders and then there's extrusion rails. So, and those are basically the rails that make up this printer. So what we're going to do is we're going to line this up. Unfortunately, I don't have a light close at hand. Be right back. All right, so we're going to go ahead and align this with the electronics case and make sure that everything is as lined up as possible. So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking this light and lining it up with the electronics box so it's as straight as possible. It probably won't be perfect because me and straight lines don't work very well. Never really have, unfortunately. But we're gonna try and set it up to where it aligns properly. So I know, like I said, I've heard people have issues with these A10Ms and the quality control on them. I have no issues with quality control because I started, well, my second printer was basically an Ender 3, so I'm well aware. My apologies for that. Turn that off. So, I'm well aware of quality control issues because my second printer was an Ender 3, and as most of you know that the people that do have Ender 3s, they tend to have terrible quality control, which is one of my reasons for leaning more towards Geeetech than Creality, because Creality just was not working well with the people that said that this was an issue or that was an issue. So it looks like we're pretty logged up here. So there is 4 screws, 2 and 2. So for anybody that has done anything with a tire, changed the tire, done anything with 4 bolts, you know that you do it in a cross pattern. So you do the upper left, then bottom right, then the upper right, than the bottom left. So, and the reason for that is just to bolt it down properly, because if you do 2 and 2, then you're going to be wobbly and you might destroy one of the nuts on the, or one of the screws. You might destroy the threads on the screws. So this way it bolts it up and then bolts it up. So it's a little better. It's not much better. Really the best way is to try and get all 4 bolts at once, but we're not that talented. We don't have any special tools or anything like that to do that. So, and you don't have to go in that exact way, but you want to try and bolt it up crossways. You don't want to do 2 and 2. So it looks like we got our gantry pretty much lined up here. Well, not gantry, I'm sorry. Our X center bar. So let's go ahead and bolt this up. We'll flip it back around and see how it is. And go from there. Alright, so now it looks like it's pretty much in line with where we need to go. Might be a tad off, but it's a lot better than what it was. So, and again, since we readjusted that, we're going to have to readjust our X plate. Or H plate, whatever you want to call it. We're going to unloosen these again. Little bit of a process, I know, but you want to quality control your printer, no matter whose it is. I don't even care if you're getting a Prusa. I would probably still end up checking over everything just to say, hey, this is set up. Even if I bought a pre-set up, pre-assembled one. All right. So now that that is flat, let's go ahead and bolt this up. Again, we're going to do 1 and 1, so I'm doing the upper right and lower left. We're going to check every single time. Okay. Usually these printers take about, maybe about an hour to set up. So, unfortunately, this one's probably going to take a little bit longer because, like I said, this is going to be my actual personal printer. I'm not going to be using this as a giveaway like I do most of my other printers. So it looks like we're pretty good. So let's go ahead and get out the rest of the stuff. In here, our Geeetech LCD. I'll be honest, I'm not really a big fan of this LCD, but you know what? I'll be okay with it because I'm probably going to use an Octopi server with it anyways. So I mean, the use of even having this is going to be practically useless. So not really a big issue. I'm used to my Enders one, which is really, really nice. So looks like a standard power supply. This is a Geeetech power. That's funny. It's got a definite German name, but it's made in China. So again, one thing that I like about these power supplies is Geeetech decided to make this I guess acrylic enclosure or molded plastic enclosure. And what's nice about this over the Ender models is instead of it riding in air like my Ender does, now they might have fixed this by now, but my Ender currently you have you can put your finger in between the extrusion bar and the power supply, and that's a gap. Whereas on this sits flush onto the extrusion bar, so it's really, really nice. There can be a downfall with that, and that may have been why Creality decided to bump away from that, and that is because sound. Sound travels through metal pretty easily, so when the fan starts going bad on this, it can travel through the entire unit and cause some rumbling issues. So that may have been why. I don't know. So we have our power cord here. I don't think I actually need to unwrap this. I think I got a power cord right here. Yes, I do. So we're just going to leave that unwrapped. Grab this really quick so we have that. Okay. Typical Geeetech little kit. Looks like they gave us 2 colors. So actually, I don't even have to grab the two colors. So we're just going to use their filament kits. So they gave us the Geeetech blue, it looks like, or maybe a little darker, and then kind of like a yellowish, greenish color. I don't really know what to make of that. It's kind of like an in-between. It's not really yellow. This yellow is definitely more vibrant. I have a yellow over there, and it's definitely way different. This is like a highlighter yellow. So, anyway. Let's go ahead with that. USB cable. Got tons of these. Just going to throw that in the parts bin. We have our mount for one of the, one of the spool holders. Another spool holder mount. Have some extra zip ties. We have two of our spool holder rollers. Guess our bed is semi-level. The typical 1 gigabyte full-size SD card. So another thing that's over like an Ender model and most Creality models is the SD card is full size and it plugs into the back of the LCD like so. Very easy accessible, very easy to use. So definitely a nice little overview. We have some lock rings. Those are going to be for the filament holders. Looks like an extra screw from somewhere. These are kind of nice. These are kind of, some people are wishy-washy about these. These are Z rod holders. So there's two types of thinking behind this. In my opinion, it stabilizes my Z rod as long as the Z rod is straight. Now, I have to say I got to give credit to Geeetech for the most part, doing a good job on QC. Unfortunately, this one is a little lacking. But what these do is these help hold the Z into a certain area. The Z rods, those are the threaded rods. They hold it into there and basically allow you to use it as you should. So some people like these, most people don't. I'm a big fan of them. I printed one actually for my Ender 3, and it didn't really help. It was just kind of like a peace of mind, I guess you could call it, because I was worried that there was going to be some sort of issue with Z wobble at some point. So I wanted to make sure that there was no Z wobble on that. There should be 2 of those on here, I believe. Could be wrong. Maybe one's already on the unit. We have our parts bag, and just as usual, I think, oh, nope, this time they actually included it. So the last 2 Geeetech A10s I unboxed. Now granted, this is an A10M, so they do give you a little bit more premium stuff. In order to adjust the centric nuts on my bed to allow it to sit flush and mount it and get it all sturdy as possible, I had to use my extra little tool from my Ender 3 because the ones that they include are ridiculous or too small. So normally on the Geeetech A10, they include these 2. So this one's definitely way too big for centric nuts, and this one's definitely way too small. What these are for, I haven't even really looked into it. So I had to use this one where it's kind of like in between those 2 and perfect for centric nuts. This one, thankfully, they have included, along with a extra nozzle. It looks like a clean out tool, which basically looks like Chinese acupuncture needles. Well, I guess you could just call them acupuncture. They're not really Chinese, but in this case, it's from China. It's Chinese acupunctures. So another thing that they include now with the Geeetech A10 and the Geeetech A10M, which is a nice little added feature, is the addition of filament sensors. Now, I'll be honest, these are probably the cheapest filament sensors I can ever possibly find. But if they work, that's great. If for those of you that don't know what filament sensors are, basically if I have this spool of filament and I'm printing something for 8 hours, obviously this spool is not going to last 8 hours. This is probably maybe a 2-hour spool, if that. Now it might last a little bit longer if we're doing dual colors, but so basically what it does is once this runs out, it'll go through this filament sensor, and then once it runs to the end, it'll trigger these sensors. These sensors will trigger into the unit's CPU and tell it, hey, I ran out of filament, we're gonna stop the print and pause it so we're not just printing in error or printing one color at a time and destroying your entire print. So that's kind of nice if you're someone like me that works long hours and you don't have time to get home to change out filament. So that way you don't come home to either a big huge mess or nothing at all. Because everybody loves coming home to something being printed completely in error. So another thing that this always comes up with, which I absolutely love, is a backup screw kit bag. Now, as you guys saw, I had to redo the electronics plate because there was a bolt missing. Now, I could probably undo that bolt at some point and replace it with a bolt that's probably in here, but we'll do that at a later time. I'm not really worried about it. I have tons of extra bolts, and that's what this bag is going to go to. It's going to go into my little parts bin. So initially, we only have really 2 bags that we need to open that have the bolts for what we need. So this one, I believe, looks like 2 bolts for the LCD panel and then 2 bolts for something else. Then we have 4 bolts here. These 4 bolts are going to go for our upright or our gantry. So let's go ahead and get that out. Also, Geeetech loves to have these things included as well. These little mats. I actually have one right here on my mouse so I can click around. So it's kind of nice to have that, but I'm starting to get a stockpile of them, unfortunately. So not really needed. So let's go ahead and pull out our gantry bar, or upright as some may call. That's awesome. So, all right. For some reason, I thought that this was a dual Z. I guess I was wrong, which is not really the end of the world. But I swore it was a dual Z. Maybe I'm thinking dual extruder. I don't know. Whatever. So basically, all this is a Geeetech A10 with a dual extrusion hot end on it and 2 extruders. So really, if somebody wanted to upgrade from a current A10 to an A10M, really all they'd have to replace is probably this entire hot end assembly and grab another extruder. Now, there is some differences between an A10. Unfortunately, I don't have my other A10 here right now. I wish I still had it to do a comparison between it. But I guess you do need some extra stuff now that I'm looking at it. So yeah, so basically, this entire upright, I would just replace if you're going to get an A10M. So, not really needed, but that way everything's already set up from Geeetech, ready to go. So let's go ahead and put our Z wobble, anti-wobbler, I guess you could call it, on and get that set up. And then we'll put this setup on. So this comes with hammer nuts on it. First one, sweet. So for those of you that don't know hammer nuts, they basically look like a hammer head, and they snug up inside of the extrusion bar. So if you don't have a hammer nut kit, which I actually don't, I do suggest getting, because it really does help out a lot. So boom, right there. So now all you have to do is just snug up these bolts, and they will snug up to the frame quite perfectly. Now, one thing I always worry about with hammer nuts is sometimes they don't grip very well. So I'm always worried that I'm not gripping the extrusion bar with it. But what's nice is usually when it gets closer to the end, it does end up gripping it. So in the end, I guess it does really work the way that it should. So, and this is exactly why I like doing this live, because you guys can see all my trials and tribulations on how to build one of these systems. Because really, a lot of people do the magic of the internet. Hey, I'm gonna unbox this, all right, so this is all our parts, and then snap of the finger, everything's already together. Well, yeah, well that's great. I wanna know how you put it together. I wanna know if you had any problems with it. As you can tell, we've already had problems. So, you know, that's one of the things. So another thing we have is they gave us 2 extra PTFE tubings, or Bowden tubes actually. These are not even PTFE, as far as I know. Bowden tubes are a little different than PTFE. PTFE tends to hold better temperature. So at some point we will probably end up replacing these, probably sometime this week, with PTFE tubes. So let's go ahead and get this all set up, and we will get this ball on the roll. There. So now this part is kind of tricky. You can do it several ways. What's kind of nice is I have a table that I can just go ahead and bring this up. We're going to raise our gantry though. So, and then once we're done with this, we're going to check our gantry as well and make sure that that is leveled. Now, one thing I will say, when you're attaching your upright to the printer, you're going to want to probably plug in your Z switch. That's the one down here on the bottom of the frame, with the plug that's coming out of the electronics box. The reason being is it might make it a little bit easier to get this all set up, because trying to get that plug in here when you snug up the frame and get it all set up and then try and plug it in, you got to kind of like curve it in and plug it up. So it's kind of a pain, but it's not the end of the world. I mean, it's pretty simple to put it in, but we're just going to make it easier on ourselves and plug it in right now and call it a day. Get that one little thing out of the way. Okay, simple as that. Now, another thing that I always like about the Geeetech is they have these little extrusion covers, I guess you could call them. So it makes it look a little aesthetically better than my Ender 3 does. But that's give or take. Some people like them, some people don't. I like the aesthetic version of this. I like that. So I'm okay with it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to hand tighten these screws on each side, and then we're going to come back around and button them all up, doing our similar system. So we're going to do one inside, one outside, and then one inside, one outside. So that's basically how we're going to do that. Because again, you don't want to be bolting up one side and then bolting up the other side. You could either cut up the thread or destroy the extrusion bar or potentially warp your entire gantry, which is highly, highly unlikely. I've never heard of that happening, but we're not going to take any chances with that. So it's just some little things that I've learned along the way. So, and if there's ever any tension when you're screwing in screws, something is probably off. So just double check everything before you go ahead and start smashing it down and trying to tighten it up, because obviously something is a little off. This screw, we got a little bit of the tension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back off the other screw that I put in and see if that helps. Now that we got those screwed in, we're going to go ahead and start tightening them up. So what I did is I tightened up the first outside one, and then we're going to do the inside on this side. Again, a lot of back and forth, but you want to try and do it as right as possible. Do you absolutely need to do this? No, but I've come accustomed to doing things in a certain way, certain patterns that you learn over the years, and the reasonings behind it. All in all, it says that we have been streaming for about 43 minutes. So that's not too bad. So out of box to probably a first print, probably be an hour and 15 minutes. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at what we need to do in terms of setting up the extruders and getting those all in and out. So, okay. So it looks like we're going to be mounting these extruders on the back side. So let's go ahead and get that all set up as I blast myself in the face with the bed. Okay. So we have a motor here. Okay. So we've connected the Z-stop. We'll connect all the other connectors later on. We'll just go through and set them all up. So basically, we're kind of skipping through the assembly instructions to a way that I like doing it, but you can do it whichever way you want. I'm just going to do all the harder stuff first, as normal. So let's go ahead and put our extruders on. We are going to put those on. Looks like that way. Oh, okay. So the extruders go up like this. So that's all right. So now we have some hammer nuts. Again. Oh, this one's already come with it. Let's go ahead and plug this one. These are really, really small screws to tighten this with. And yeah, if you guys got any questions, feel free to ask. I will be here. All right, so we're just gonna put those on just a little bit. And let's go ahead and tighten this up. I just had that. There. As I lose the screw. One screw Allen key seems to be stripped out. Right. Okay, so what's nice is you can adjust these extruders to whichever distance you feel. So it's not really an obligation for you to put them in a specific area. So right now we're just going to set them up as is and go from there. So we'll probably end up moving them over just a hair. those of you who are new, welcome to the channel. This is a new channel I'm going to be trying to keep up with content on, and basically the reason why it's called 3D Noob is I am pretty new to the 3D printing world, and I want to share my unknown experiences with 3D printing. I probably know a little bit more than most noob people do, but if I can help people along the way with what they need, then that's all the more better. So now we're going to set up our filament bars and get those up and running. So I know a lot of people have issues with these filament bars, so let's go ahead and see what it has. So now it looks like that way. So it looks like they have one going one way and one going another way. Very interesting. That's very, very interesting. Huh. Okay. So on the directions, it shows one filament sensor going, or filament spool holder going this way and another going this way, which I guess that's okay. We'll go by the directions, as much as I'm not a big fan of doing that. We'll appease to them. Appease them. And yes, I'm well aware that the header to my video is the wrong name, because it says dual, instead of it saying dual filament, it says full filament. So it looks like we're missing a hammerhead here. We'll have to take a look around and see if we got an extra one around here. Nothing in there, nothing in the bag. Nothing in that bag. Nothing in that bag. Just double check here. Nope. So I either dropped it or it's just not here. So it looks like we're missing one hammer nut, which is fine. I have an extra. Unfortunately, that is one thing that Geeetech does not include in these bags, which I wish they would. I thankfully believe I have an extra hammer nut in here somewhere. There we are. And they're the wrong size, of course. So we're gonna literally wing it. Actually, no, I should probably use a square nut, because I have hammer nuts, but they are of a different size. That is not going to work. Yep, so we're just going to have to do it without a mini wing nut because I have a hammerhead nut, but it is the wrong size. So we're just gonna have to wing it. I'm sure it'll be okay if we have it set up a certain way. Okay, so now it says assemble that filament holder. So we're gonna do the back side here. We're gonna do that side that way. Again, we're doing it exactly how they're telling me to set it up. Just a little bit smaller. There we go. So that one's all snugged up. Now we're going to do this one the opposite side. And basically what I'm doing for these filament spool holders is I'm snugging them up as close as I can to the two bolts for the upright extrusion. Yeah, that'll be alright with one of those. So I'll have to take a look around and see if maybe I misplaced a hammer nut or what's going on with it. I do not see it anywhere in here. No biggies. Okay, so now that we've got our spool holder set up, let's go ahead and get this set up. If I could see what I'm doing, that would be great. Won't be there. Okay. I'm not really worried about these. I'm probably gonna end up replacing them. I did print parts to have them come this way, both, but they did not turn out all that well, so I had to toss them in the scrap bin. So they definitely would not work, for sure. So another thing, we're gonna go ahead and set up our dual filaments. So there is like a little bar right below the Bowden tubes that are inside of the extruder systems, and that's where these filament sensors bolt up to. So they have like little pivot balls on them, and what we're going to do is we are going to screw these directly into that. That's kind of a pain to do that, so maybe we could do that the other way. Let's see what the instructions say. Alright, so it says to do it from the top. Okay. So basically it shows it without the PTFE tubes in there, but we're going to try and do that with PTFE tubes. Let's see what size this is first. Not that one. It is that one. So it's a possibility that we might need to remove those PTFE tubes. Or at least just push the tube out of the way. It's kind of a pain. I wish they would have left those out. Yeah, that's kind of hard to do. Let's see if we can move these. I got a pair of trusty pliers. I don't want to destroy these tubes. I mean, I can always cut more. They gave us extra anyway, so it's not the end of the world. Let me see if I can even just pull these out. Boy, those are stuck in there. So you're going to have to pull out the little PTFE tubes that are inside of the extruders in order to get the filament sensors in there. I will say that the filament sensors, they are a required taste. You don't have to install them, but I'm going to have them installed because I want to see how these work, because I'm quite interested in it. I do have other filament sensors that are probably a lot better than these, but we shall see. Shed some light on the situation, because these are kind of a pain in the ass to get in. I'll be completely honest. If these are the right screws, anyway. I think these are too big. Yep, looks to be. So hiccup number 2 is the screws that were provided with the filament sensors do not work with these holes. So I believe these are M5s and they require M3. So let's do some checking here in a second and see if these work a lot better. Yep. So the screws that they provided were M5, and the screws that are needed are M3. So if you go ahead and try and put these filament sensors in and you're having a rough time, well, now you know why. They don't fit because they are the wrong sizes. So that's strike 2 for Geeetech, or strike 3, whatever you want to call it. So, and you can tighten these down or have them loosey-goosey, whatever. I'm going to tighten them straight down because it is on a ball point. So, to have them working okay, we can use that. Thankfully, I have an extra thing of parts bins, again. Not many people do, but thankfully I do. And for reasons just like this. That way we can finish what we need to do. Now we're probably going to end up replacing those filament sensors at some point. I don't think that they're going to be that spectacular, that great, to be in all honesty. But we'll test them out. We'll see how they are. Not expecting much from them, because usually stock systems, you can take them or leave them. Now we're going to go ahead and press these PTFE tubing, Bowden tubes back in. That's real pain in the ass. Now that is one thing I will say about Geeetech is their extruder motors I really like, and these ones are even top notch. These are basically a knockoff of Titan extruders, basically. They go through and through. So like, what I mean they go through and through is, if you own an Ender or you own a first generation Geeetech A10, actually not even, I'm sorry, if you own an Ender or any Creality machine that has a specific extruder, the extruder basically has a point here, and then it clamps into two, one side is an idler pulley and the other one is like a gear. They go into between that and into another hole. This one is, you get to the gears and then like there's the Bowden tube, you get to the gears, and right after the gears there's another hole that's just like a Bowden tube, and it goes straight through. So there's no potential of it jamming up there. At least not from what I've seen. I don't see how you could, to be honest. So let's go ahead and put those along. Those are extra. Okay, getting that way, getting soon. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and set up the electronics portion. Another thing that I absolutely love about Geeetech is their wire management is untouchable. Everything's very simply wired. Everything has nice wiring on it. So, and they've even upgraded their hot end to have a ATX clip that clips directly in there. So if you ever have any problems with the hot end here, you can easily just replace the entire hot end board. So you're not replacing an entire electronics board. So that's really nice to have. So we're going to go ahead, and these are marked E0 and E1, and they are marked on the they're not marked on the extruders themselves or the motors. That's one thing that definitely Creality does, but they're marked properly in the instruction manual. So E0 is going to be our left side here, and E1 is going to be our right, which if you were looking at this from the face forward, it would be the opposite. So let's go ahead and plug those in. Okay, there's one, there's two, and then there's two little small wires that plug into the filament sensors. Double check our wiring. So they do give quite a long wire loom for that, which that's kind of good, but we're probably going to end up zip tying that to the Z-rod, because or somewhere, probably the Z-rod base. There's two holes there on the back, so we're probably going to zip tie them to there. We'll give it enough room to play with. So we'll probably have the hot end there, and boom, right there. So yeah, let's do that right now. All right. We're just going to mock that up for now, and then we're going to plug in all of our electronics here, and then lastly we're going to hook up our power supply and hook that up. So everything is labeled here ZM. It's going to be our Z motor. Z is down at the bottom. And we're going to do YM and YES. So here's our Y motor. This one I believe is our X. Put that down at the bottom. Okay. Now, one thing I will say is this wire loom is quite tight. It's going to be an issue probably getting this in here. Yeah, this one is a little problematic. Okay, unless they switch these around, this might have been needed for the x-axis and not the y, but we'll take a look at it. All right, most of the electronics are done. Let's go ahead and mount our power supply. We're going to go ahead and get this up out of the way so we can mount it. Oh yeah. Yeah, I think they might have mixed up the wires for that, for sure. That is definitely not going to work. So we may have to open up the carriage here. Never mind. I'm just special. All right. I didn't just notice that when I went to go and plug in the Y, the rear motor is a little bit loose. So we're going to button that up really quickly, because we don't need that. So some issues with this build so far. Not really the end of the world, but because it still is a kit, so you gotta expect to have some issues here and there. This up. Okay. And last but not least, our power supply, which they did not really get bolts for. Oh, I was wrong. They did get bolts. That's what the 2 bolts are for. Okay, so we have 2 bolts for the LCD and 2 bolts for the power supply. Now, what's nice about this is they give a little slit in the blue extrusion pieces to screw these into the power supply. So that's definitely a nice thing to have. Alright. Now that that's all set up, let's plug in our ATX power cord. Now when you plug this in, make sure that the wires are red and the other wire is black. And you are plugging them in red to red, black to black. I have not had an issue with Geeetech stuff, but I have heard of other companies like Creality doing that and basically destroying people's printers. Because when you turn it on and you have negative to power, guess what's going to happen? Boom! One thing I will say that is an absolute pain with the Geeetech printers is these ribbon cables for the LCD screen. I am personally not a big fan of them. I like the Enders where it's just a simple type of plug, and it is still type of a ribbon cable, but it's not as ribbony as this. The only upside to this is that it's very slim, so you can easily put something somewhere. So that's the only like upside to having a screen like that. to go ahead and plug this in, and I believe we have to have blue ribbon out, if I'm not mistaken, if they did not change anything. And I don't. Okay, so blue ribbon, the blue portion is out. So you just slide it in, and then you just tab it down. Okay, so what I did is I went under the carriage with the ribbon cable and just kind of twisted it around so that it's facing out front. This way you won't really have any issues. With I need to get some better lighting in here. All right, we got one screw in. Get that other one. It's just about ready. So we're just double checking our belts, making sure that everything is good. X might need a little bit of adjustment. The Y, I mean, keep calling it the X. Go ahead and take our plate off. Go ahead and snug this up, because it's a tad bit wobbly. It's not terribly wobbly. But we're gonna snug it up anyway. All right, it looks like we're all good. This does come with the super plate, aka the any cubic ultra base style build plate. So I can give or take them. I'm probably going to end up removing this completely. And we're probably going to end up in adding an easy ABL kit to it from TH3D Studios because I know that they need this for development, so it'll probably be over there for about a week or so getting some development done. But without further ado, let's go ahead and plug this all up. And let's go ahead and power it on. Can't do that with the cable. Wah, wah. Okay, so we're just going to go up and over that. So the ribbon cable was not able to fit under the carriage. There's not enough line for it. So that's fine. It's not the end of the world. We're just going to reposition this and nothing. So do we have a dead screen, my friend? And this is why I do these videos. Because you never know what can go wrong. Connect the cable for LCD. Nope, the blue side is on the bottom side. Yes, I did note that. So we may have to open up the electronics box and check out what's going on in there. Because as of right now, I don't have any power on my display. So, time to do some little work. So we have 3 screws on the top of this little fan shroud. They are very, very small. Now I could also see why the extrusion bar was set that way. So we do have power to the LCD, but it is not turning on. We'll take a look at it anyway. Okay, so we have all of the connections in here. Looks good. Let's double check our LCD. Thought I had a pair of tweezers. Whew. All right. So the unfortunate downfall of most of these companies is they love to put hot glue on all their connectors, just to make sure that nothing is touched by the consumer, which I applaud to an extent. So what is going on here? Why are we getting no power to that? Oh, I know why. Forgot to check the most important thing. Power supply. Power supply switch. There we go. It's not going to hurt anything, but if you have it on for a long time, it might. All right. Let's go ahead and turn that back off while we put this all back together. So, and now what we're just going to do is we're just going to do a test print. One of the ones that's probably included. I don't know what, but we'll go through. Supposedly there's a handful of them now. So it's not like it's just one. Like they used to just have the dog, and I guess they include multiple ones now. So that's kind of nice. Slides real nice. Okay, now it's time to start printing. Let's go ahead and open up our filament packs here. We have blue and we have highlighter yellow. Where's the end of this? This is the end. That is a hard thing to get in. Whew. Be nice if I went through the filament sensor first, huh? Oh, that is hard to get in there. These extruders are really nice, but man, are they a pain in the ass to get that filament in there. Not even in there. So one thing I did hear about these is because these Titan extruders are so like ridiculous, that it's kind of a pain in the ass to get them in. And that's proving to be true. While they are great to have, apparently not so great to put in filament. some reason it is going down. Cut these on an angle, as we normally would. Straighten them out as good as we can. So far, initial impressions of the extruder, a little too good. Oh, I think I got it this time. Yes, we did. All right, sweet. So let's go ahead and put that button back in there. Put that through. All right, so we got the yellow in. Let's try and get the blue in now. We're just going to leave these off because I'm not going to deal with these spools. So let's see if we can try and manually push this in. See if that'll be easier. Let's go to prepare, move access, extruder. Millimeter. So the extruders are not all that great. Am I the only one on? No, it says that there's 4 people watching, but you're the only person commenting. Oh, there we go. That was a lot easier. Guess I shouldn't have been rushing. All right, so all the filament is loaded all the way down to the hot end. So let's go ahead and see what we got. We're gonna go and preheat PLA and just preheat PLA. So we have a temperature of 70, or I'm sorry, a bed of 70, which that's pretty good for this this build plate. I am going to add some extra adhesion to it because I've noticed that even at 70, it sticks, but it's not that great. That's why I'm not a big fan of these plates. I know a lot of people like them, but I prefer build mat now, or glass. So, and again, adhesion is probably, not the greatest. I know you guys are probably thinking, well, what the hell am I doing? I haven't even leveled the bed. Well, I'm actually going to level the bed while I print. So, like here, I'll do an initial one for you if you really want that. Let's go to home. And I don't really have any sheets of paper on hand, I don't think. So we're just going to use the good old Geeetech one. Okay, now we're going to level the corners. Let's see what this says. I'll have to button that up. Just make sure that it's not riding everywhere. The last thing we need is it riding on a print. That would be bad. Good. Yeah, I think we're going to have to move down the limit switch. Because that is way too high. So we're going to just move down the Z limit switch just a tad. Okay, I lied. I'm gonna level the bed. Only because the Z was off way too much. Pretty good. It's good enough to where we can start printing. I will say that these springs suck. Alright, let's go ahead and go back. And let's go to mixer. Okay. So we have 100% on filament R and 100% on that. So on here, there's a mixer option. So we're going to do 50 and 50. Or we'll do 70 and 30. Okay. So this is something that I got to learn all new for this. All right, let's go ahead and let's see, dog, lizard, or cone? Let's do a cone. I haven't done a cone. Go ahead for that. So we're preheating up to 65 and 195. So let's go ahead and see. How this goes. While that happens, yes, it mixes in the hot end. So this thing has two options. You can do a mix. So like this color will probably create a green, as from what I can tell here. So I have it mixed at 30-70. So I think I have 70 blue, 30 highlight yellow. And looks like it's mixing almost a teal color. I do have to adjust this a little more here and there. Or you can have it do multiple colors. So you don't have to have it, it can also be one layer is blue, one layer is green, one layer is blue, one layer is green. But I set it up a little differently for the first print here to see what color I can come up with. Because it'd be very interesting to mix like a blue and a gray, or a green and a gray. Right now I'm still trying to level this properly. We'll see how it goes. So far it's not coming out too good, but like I said, I'm probably going to end up replacing this mat and calling it a day, and then putting an easy ABL on it, because really that's probably the best thing for this. Again, because I don't like the Geeetech super plates. They're nice, don't get me wrong, but it's just, it's not that great. I'm not a big fan of them. You got to use adhesion with them, and it's not something I want. So I have two choices. I can put a build plate over it, or I can take off the plate completely and just put a mat on it. Looks like we're going down a little bit better. Yeah, this probably isn't going to come out very well. Let's go and get some cleaner. So there were some issues with the printer when I first set it up, if you guys weren't here. First off, they forgot to add a hammer nut for one of the spool holders. The screws for the filament sensors were the wrong size. They gave me M5, and I needed an M3. What else? The extruders are very hard to get used to. I'm not used to using Titan style extruders. I'm used to using like the old regular cheapo ones, which the regular Geeetech ones are perfectly fine. I'm not exactly sure why they upgraded this. I mean, it is a nice upgrade, don't get me wrong. These are really, really heavy duty extruders. Like, these aren't just like cheap plastic that's gonna break. These are probably like composite or something. They're really, really nice extruders. So I'm just gonna let this print because personally I don't really care about the filament, and I just want to see how it comes out. So so it looks like the first layer went down. It was kind of like greenish blue. Now it looks like it's using the yellow filament. So we'll have to see how this runs. I'm not sure if it's going to do a mix, because I did the cone. So in theory, the cone should be that a couple levels are green, a couple levels are blue, a couple levels are green, and a couple levels are blue, and then finish off with green. That's what it should do. That's been sitting for a little while, so let's go ahead and throw this. And it looks like we're just we're carrying away here. I'll bring up the camera here. Let's bring you guys over here. Found the other hammer nut. Haha, they didn't short me one. I knew it was around somewhere. Probably sat in it. So let's go ahead and switch camera views here. So as you can see, it's not the greatest, and I kind of melted the paper on there, so we'll have to wipe that off. But not the greatest looking. I need to adjust the bed a little more, adjust the Z height. I moved it down. I need to move it back up just a pinch. Yeah, so far it's kind of nice. I like this whole hot end setup because basically, instead of people having to rewire things or whatnot, everything is modular on the back end here. So you can plug in a fan, you can plug in an extra fan if you want. You got your thermistors, your heater block, everything, or heater cartridge. You got dual heater blocks here. Looks like possibly dual fans on the inside. Yep. So they have two fans, one wedged up right against each other. Obviously, this one's probably going to be upgraded. I will end up putting an easy ABL kit on this at some point, and an easy mat as well, just because I think that would be a nice touch to this. I know Geeetech does have their sensor for this. That's why they put these on all these. That's cool to have, but there's better versions of that. So as you can see, this side is a little too close, and unfortunately I'm maxed out, so I can't really. I guess I could turn it a little more. We're stringing pretty bad now. So either one of two things is happening. Either the hot end is not getting hot enough on one, or we're clogging already, which I have heard of it clogging up. So, but what's really nice is it's got a little mixer setting in it. So we're gonna go over here, and you can change the mixer on a fly. So right now I have the right filament, which is blue, at 70%, and the left filament at 30. There is this little template thing, and you can start it off or end it, and then you could also do mix percent too. So this is where you actually have the mixing portion of it. So that way you can change, like this would probably make green, I'm guessing, if I did the mix percent. So really, really cool little option in there. Definitely unique. So something I'm gonna have to learn over time, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same software. Let's see what it's what information it is. Printer info, Marlin 1.1.8, so not too bad. Uploaded 12/25/17. So about a year ago, so we could probably upgrade that. The board is a GT 2560 version 3.0 and generic PSU protocol 1.0. Thermistors, so this is all my temperature and information for the thermistors, stuff that you probably won't be interested in if you don't really care about that. And that's pretty much it for the printer information. So, but we'll see how this goes down. I got to play with it. It's the first time using a printer like this, so it's gonna take some time to get used to. It's definitely not laying down the way that I want it to. And I can't really like check it because it's going real fast. All right, buddy. You have a good night, Peter. Let's see if I can squish this a little better, because that is not looking very good. It's looking very, very stringy, very cutty. So we're gonna test it out once it comes back around here. Get down any closer. Let's see. So I'm going to bring this up a little bit and see how that does in terms of layer. So it looks like we're still poppy. So I think we got a jam actually. Alright, so for the most part, that's pretty much it. I'm going to tinker with this a little more and see if I can get a little better layer adhesion with it. And I will do a follow-up video for it, because I'm sure a lot of people will be asking for it. We'll fine-tune some settings on it, get another print on it, and go from there. And yeah, if you guys like the video, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. And share the video if you like. Go ahead and ring the notification bell, so next time I go live or I upload a video, you guys know. Stay tuned for some more content. We're going to be working on the channel a lot more come the beginning of November, and I will be having quite a few videos uploaded, so stay tuned for that. And you guys all have a good night. Thanks for sticking around.